Special mention for Daniel Carson for being an absolute hero and becoming the latest patron of the channel. I really appreciate it. I've also heard he's got a massive vocabulary, and if some of you could rub his back in the comments below, that would be awesome. Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, this is Battlefield 5, and we know that almost everyone is complaining about the Type 2A right now, the Nambu Type 2A. I believe the newest SMG in the game, and I really want your opinion on this one today. Give me your feedback, tell me in the comments what you think of this gun right before it gets nerfed, because it's probably the single most complained about gun in BF5 so far, and I'd like to know if it's really been annoying you and if it's worse than what you've seen previously, or if you can think of things that have been more irritating. Because before, people have complained about MMGs, snipers, shotguns, etc., but for a single weapon, I don't remember a time when a gun was hated so much in this game, just one gun on its own, and yet has been used so much. That's a mixture of people using what gives them the advantage, of course, but also a sense of, well, if you can't beat them, join them, and I get that as well. And everyone has their basic idea of why they or others hate the Type 2A and guns like it. You know, it kills too fast, it's too easy, you see it everywhere, etc. All pretty valid but very basic stuff. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there already about guns being good or bad because it shoots fast or kills fast or that kind of thing. I'm sure there's many videos like that, but I want to provide something else, because there's likely a lot more to it that we can analyze, and a lot of us simply don't consider it when we're playing. Why is it actually rage-inducing? So I decided to look deeper to see if there's a pattern, see why people really hate when this happens, and how it could be avoided moving forwards. Now, obviously, to start off, seeing a weapon in the kill feed all the time, or being killed by it all the time, or using it all the time because you feel like it's just the best or whatever, will cause fatigue. You'll get sick of it. This is normal whether a gun is actually overpowered or not. But beyond that, yes, it is easy to use in what is probably the most common medic playstyle right now. What some people see as a crutch playstyle right now. Rush in without too much consideration and get involved, spray with a super lethal gun without requiring much aim, and heal up if you manage to survive. Nothing really wrong with that, that's just the game at the minute, but there are alternatives. However, with that being the norm, the Type 2A is a top tier choice due to its design, and although I'm going to lay out pros and cons of the gun all the way through the video, I'll give you an overall clarification of my opinion here, so you know where I'm speaking from, and you can see I'm trying to be unbiased. The Nambu Type 2A isn't as overpowered as a lot of people think, but it is still quite obviously too good in certain ways with the game as it is right now, and it invalidates choosing a lot of other weapons, which is bad balancing, and I don't like that. Thankfully, as I've said, it is getting nerfed very soon, but we can still learn a lot from this. People don't like being killed by things really quickly, and that's whether it's balanced or not again. Shotguns are actually pretty underpowered in this game right now for its design, and yet people complain about being killed by shotguns. People used to complain about the Thompson, or they said before that the Suomi was a low skill weapon, and in Battlefield 1, the Hellriegel was super complained about and overused, undeniably. The Automatico caused rage, and then came the SMG-08, and people lost their minds about how overpowered it supposedly was. And from that we can start to see a definite pattern if we look closely enough, at least where the SMGs are concerned. Somewhat fast-firing weapons with supposed ease of use, even if actually they aren't always super easy or low skill, because they generally lack the range to contest at the average engagement distance, but that doesn't matter most of the time when it comes to annoying the community, because of that very common rushing without consideration mentality, usually excused as simply playing objectively. They aren't the same thing, trust me. Some people play the objective and some people play without thought. But regardless, there's a pattern and there are for sure elements that are annoying and sometimes overpowered. But then let's analyze. Why was the Automatico, as much as it was complained about on PC, not complained about as much as say the Hellriegel or the SMG-08 overall? Well, it's simple. The Automatico was genuinely more limited when it came to being versatile, although PC did give it that bit more versatility due to aiming with a mouse. But besides that, it could then be seen as being harder to use in some circumstances than the Hellriegel and the SMG-08, but a large part of it, perhaps the most important part of it, is magazine size coupled with their ease of use and rate of fire. The Hellriegel factory, as much as it simply wasn't as overpowered as many thought, had a rate of fire of 650 rounds per minute with a 60 round magazine. So as limited as the Hellriegel genuinely was, by the way, in some ways, it was always going to be hard for people to accept a weapon firing that fast, being that easy to use, and having a 60 round magazine. I mean, if we compare with BF5 for a second, the Grease gun, which I think is awesome by the way, and the Type 100 fire at 450 and 720 rounds per minute respectively. One quite a bit faster and one quite a bit slower than the Hellriegel, and they both only have 30 rounds available per per reload, half the magazine size. I know they're in a different game with different balancing and stuff, but you see my point. That actually, most people really won't consider that stuff and will just look at the hard numbers. In this instance, I can totally see why as well. And this is further displayed by the introduction of the SMG-08. Formerly a slower firing SMG, DICE changed it to a 770 RPM weapon with an 81 round magazine. And that really does kind of tie in with the Type 2A issue. Guns that kill very quickly within a popular combat range for certain players, having massive magazines. The ease of use and forgiving nature of them for CQC play is extreme. I say that because the Type 2A fires at 1028 RPM with a 51 round magazine, which is insane. All those bullets firing that quickly. I really feel like DICE should have seen this problem coming. In fact, some people probably did, but that's by the by. Or you can smash that gun up to 1200 RPM, literally twice the rate of fire of the MAB-38, and still have a 31 round magazine. That's insane. Both of those options are absolutely ridiculous. Like the Suomi and the Thompson used to get a few complaints previously, and this also highlights the issue of the Type 2A now, because although they have some advantages over the Type 2A, it's just so hard to ignore those core stats I just listed, especially when the game itself doesn't really display in-depth stats to the player, so the eye-catching ones are generally rate of fire and magazine size. Well, the Suomi and the Thompson in their faster rates of fire only had 20 round magazines, and in their default slower rates of fire, they both had 50 round magazines, and considering the Type 2A fires faster than both of them, well, its selection just became a no-brainer for most players. So do you know what I also think are really good in the game right now? Two examples from two different classes, the Grease Gun and the Model 8. Two guns with either a low rate of fire for their weapon type, so the Grease Gun, or a small magazine size, the Model 8. They can both be absolutely fantastic when used correctly. Neither of them really get substantial complaints, likely due to them not falling into one of the so-called crutch playstyles, and I actually think they're balanced. So basically this shows that the Type 2A and weapons like it can be highly flawed in their balancing, but also sometimes receive extra hate purely due to the playstyle they fall into or their perceived strengths without them actually being accurate all of the time. DICE can totally put weapons like this into the game, but they really should learn from these mistakes. You can't have super fast rate of fire weapons with massive magazines if they're pretty easy to use. It just can't really be balanced effectively unless they have some mega obvious downsides, and that balance was always going to be really hard to achieve in the 5.2.2 update climate due to the extreme lack of recoil in the game. High rate of fire, low recoil, extending their viable range, and a large magazine, a recipe for disaster, and at least somewhat reminiscent of the MMGs before their nerfs. Not in all ways, obviously there's a lot of differences, but there are similarities there. And this leads me to an important point. The 6.2 update that's right around the corner, or perhaps is here when some of you watch this, will supposedly add more recoil to gunplay, and specifically, the Type 2A is being nerfed. If it gets extreme recoil, then it will negate the balancing issue. However, if this gets nerfed into the ground, while other SMGs aren't, that would be a shame. We don't want to see weapons become useless. At the end of the day, it's just pixels on the screen shooting other pixels on the screen. It's not actually a real thing. Retaining hatred for it after it's been altered doesn't really make much sense. Weapon class damage is being altered plus other changes. With huge shifts coming, perhaps the Type 2A won't need especially hard treatment. Was the Type 2A only dominant due to the weakness of some other guns? There's also a school of thought that proclaims that buffing other guns is better than nerfing one. Now that's not always the case, but it can sometimes be. And is the overall lack of shotgun viability a factor due to removing a hard counter of this weapon? Is the lack of range damage for most guns making it easier for medics to stomp around with this close quarters killing machine, only taking a little damage from afar and then just healing up? Did DICE basically create the perfect storm? Possibly so. Basically, I hope DICE get this right. No more knee-jerk reactions, and hopefully less adding things to the game that then require extensive work to bring in line. And so that's my roundup of why you probably hate the Type 2A, or why you use it so much, or both. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, leaving a like means a huge amount. If you're new here, please do consider subscribing. I've got loads of content coming out, and hitting that notification bell can help you to stay up to date, and all the links to my social media can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here's the Board of Awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page can be found in the description and my pinned comment. And with all that said, I'm GetGoodGuy, and I'll see you next time. Laters. So what I'm going to do is compare Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 in this video. I've broken it down into 10 specific factors which I think cover pretty close to the entirety of the game and what it's built up of.